Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Pluto, square, opposition, or inconjunct one's natal south node. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Pluto, they can be about power, control, transformation, crisis, desire, even obsession and fixation. Now, when you have transit Pluto, basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal south node. Now, I'm going to elaborate on that. When I say basically adverse aspect, what I'm saying is, of course, squares and oppositions, they are adverse negative aspects in astrology. But the inconjunct is neutral, but even, when you're talking about inconjunct aspects and neutral aspects in general can have good and bad qualities in them. And coupled with the fact that an inconjunct can often require an adjustment or a transition. And that, of course, can cause some exasperation and tension. So collectively, basically, I do see this as an adverse transit. Anyway, now, when you have transit Pluto, basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal south node, well, may manifest in power, control, transformation, crisis, what you desire, even obsession and fixation. These things might conflict, with your past and what you're trying to get away from. It could be that you might be, trying to, might be some power struggles. Might be conflicting with somebody from your past. It could be the Plutonian things might be harder to get away from. Maybe there's a power struggle, there's some issue over some power that just you feel like it's not going away. If a child is getting this aspect and the child has been dealing with some kind of coercion and bullying in school, that might be harder to get away from. Sadly, at this time, Pluto can be associated with coercion and bullying. It could also be where if you're trying to leave the crisis behind. South node is what we're trying to get away from, what we're trying to leave behind and put in the past. But when you have this transit, again, these Plutonian things it can be more difficult to get away from and to leave behind. Could also be, if you're trying to get control over the negative manifestation of the sign that the south node is in the placement, it can be a little bit harder, but for example, let's say if you have your natal south node in Virgo in your 5th house, it could be harder to get away from being judgmental or critical over children or lovers. It could be south node in Virgo can also be about hypochondriac tendencies. And the 5th house is our fun, amusement, enjoyment. It might be something somebody actually enjoys, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. I have my natal south node in Virgo in my 5th house. Then, if the south node is in Aquarius, it could be some idiosyncratic or rebellious or non-conforming tendencies that might be harder to leave behind. It could be it could be some getting control over, I should say. Those tendencies may be harder to control, more so than usual during this transit. Now, the south node energy is also, in some cases can affect you to your detriment. And the qualities of that south node that might be affecting you adversely, those things might be harder to get away from. At the same time, on the positive end, it could be things that you strongly don't desire, and if you don't have a desire for that, then it might actually be something good. Even adverse transits can have some positivity in them. And the thing about this too is when you look at this transit, okay, the Pluto, again, Pluto's connected with our transformation. And, if you're trying to make a major change or transformation, again, going back to the fact that the south node is connected, with the past or, the people from one's past, it could be those things might be in conflict at this time. There might be a challenging, period as far as that goes at this time. It could be, a situation too Again, I mean, Pluto's connected with crisis and upheaval, and those things might be more difficult than usual to try to really get away from at this point in time during this transit. But on the positive side, now the South Node, I mean, can also be, well, I believe, what we can be naturally proficient in. I mean, it's overdeveloped qualities. It's where we feel comfortable, where we have some complacency, where we feel relaxed and at home at. I mean, the North Node, as many of you know, is what we're supposed to be moving toward. And the South Node is what we're supposed to, leave behind. The South Node can still be incorporated, with the North Node to some degree, but the North Node is supposed to be what we're supposed to emphasize, and especially in that latter part of life, age 35 and beyond that. But anyway, going back to this, this transit, this could be, something, again, going back to the fact that the South Node can be what we're naturally proficient in. It might be a time where you might even be overly fixated or obsessed with those, with that energy, that you're naturally good at. If the South Node, say, is in zodiac sign Cancer, it can be doing something, or it could be home renovation, or just simply caring and nurturing at this time, being protective. And sometimes you have like an adverse aspect with Pluto, basically adverse aspect in this case, it can be a little bit too much. Could be a little bit over fixation on this as well. So it's something to be wary of during this transit. And this is also a time too where again, the South Node can be connected, those overdeveloped redundant qualities. And the fact is, again, going back to the control issue, it can be more difficult to gaining control over that at this time. Pluto is also connected with psychology. Maybe there might be some psychological battle maybe you're going through with somebody, or warfare. That might be doing something where you're not able to do things the South Node that you're naturally proficient in at this time. This is also a situation too. When you have this transit, another way that this could be expressed, could manifest, could be where you might become, again, overly fixated or obsessed with what you're naturally proficient in. Say if the South Node is in Pisces in the 5th house as an example, it might be producing fantasy games, or even playing them like Dungeons and Dragons, or if you have some video game or what have you, that could be fantasy game. It could be doing something like even with simulated hypothetical sports matchups, because Pisces again is connected with fantasy. The imagination, the 5th house is associated with sports, and it's games and hobbies. Now, another thing too, how this transit may manifest, it could be where you might be dealing with power struggles. It could be with someone from the past, and they can be difficult, given that, again, this is basically an adverse or negative transit. Now, let's say, for example, if you have the South Node in Aries in the 12th house, it could be, where you're trying to, deal with, you're trying to maybe encourage, this person, to combat, which is Aries, and fight hidden adversaries, which is the 12th house. But if you're dealing with power struggles with somebody, it may be harder to do this and express that South Node energy, basically. But with that person, that could be connected with your past. Now, another thing too is that if you do have any of these issues, because Pluto, anatomically speaking, is connected with the colon, the prostate, the bladder, and the reproductive system, it can be a time, if any of those issues exist, especially if you had them prior to the start of this transit, they may be harder to get away from at this time, and might be causing more distress, more so than usual. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway. Now, or it could even be Plutonian related matters in general. May be harder to get away from, whether it might be a situation, with taxes or insurance or a will, or a power struggle. Could be some control issue, could be some situation maybe you're with someone you're in an intimate relationship with at this time, or a crisis may be harder to extricate yourself from at this time. Another thing too, and it might be more difficult. Now the thing is, and also keep in mind Pluto's connected with jealousy, revenge, vengeance, and manipulation too. So those qualities, you might be expressing them, or it could be from somebody else. Let's say if the transit Pluto is in the 7th house, it could be from a significant other, a marriage partner, a significant friendship, maybe an open adversary even. And let's say, again, another thing too, it might be harder to keep those negative qualities of the South Node. It may be harder to keep them secret at this, to keep them under the rug, because Pluto is connected with secrets. South Node can express very negative qualities connected with the placement, the sign it's in. And say, for example, if the South Node is in Aquarius, it could be very idiosyncratic, non-conforming, unpredictable tendencies, and rebellious tendencies as some examples. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.